Both near and far. I'm demonstrating that despite long distances between people, despite different, walls that could exist between us, very similar people, soulmates, always stick together. You can see those lines, those green lines. You can also see similar colors, so showing, substances of very similar people. They can stay together, and together they're creating a very nice unity. That's one of the artworks I'm presenting today in Toronto.
Thank you very much.
У цій роботі одночасно близько і далеко, в цьому триптиху я намагаюся показати, що відстані між людьми ніяк не можуть впливати на близькість між ними. Як ви бачите, тут є лінії, які сполучають душі, споріднені душі людей. Як ви бачите, є однакові тони. Я показую побратимство між людьми і про силу тих людей, які тримаються разом. Ось така робота в цій колекції «Живе вільно».
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the exhibit, the Live Free exhibit by Olha Bosak. My name is Bogdan Chernyaski. I'm a director of the Canada-Ukraine Foundation, and we are extremely happy to present this wonderful artist and hope you get to enjoy her work and speak to her about her tremendous achievement in this field, and also about her tremendous efforts to aid Ukraine. We've come to know her We've come to know her fairly well over the last half year or so, and it's been a tremendous pleasure discovering her work, learning about her work, both at the front lines, helping Ukrainian society, helping the Ukrainian government, and helping free enterprise in Ukraine. Without further ado, I'd like to present the General Consul of Ukraine, Andriy Vasilevsky, to start with an introduction for Olha Bosak.
Добрий вечір. Thank you, пане Богдане. Thank you, all of us present here in this very interesting event. And why interesting event? Why important event, especially for the Ukrainian government and, in this particular case, to Ukrainian Consulate General in Toronto. Ukraine is known largely by the difficult moments of her history, or recent history including, and people speak about Chernobyl, people speak about graft and corruption, people speak about other black spots of Ukraine, without sometimes understanding or seeing, in fact, in the very face of Ukraine, which is much brighter and much more pleasant than those black spots. One of the best visual presentation of Ukraine's face is Ukrainian art, and Ukraine is very well known by specialists, by art collectors, because of its art. And this art, as Ukraine develops and Ukraine changes, this art becomes new and different from that one to which we are accustomed. Social realism is still present in Ukraine. New kind of arts are coming to Ukraine, but in fact they were born in Ukraine some 80 or 100 years ago, then forgotten due to the communist regime. This small, unfortunately small, but very impressive and bright presentation of Ukrainian art by Olha Bosak is interesting because of two aspects to my mind. First of all, she was and she is participant of the Maidan, and that is why this art is part of the Maidan and emanation of the Maidan in a way. And second, because it is a different art of those we are accustomed to. So let me stop here because I'm also a watcher, not a painter. Let us give more time to the author to tell about her art and about why it is that kind of art she presents to us today. Thank you.
Доброго вечора, шановні пані і панове. Ми вирішили говорити англійською, бо все ж таки думаємо, можливо, є хтось тут серед нас, принаймні були запрошені, хто не дуже добре знає англійську. So, dear ladies and gentlemen, it's a big pleasure for me to be with you today representatives of different Ukrainian organizations here in Canada, in Toronto, who've been very, very supportive of Ukraine, in particular during last 25 years of our independence. Canada played a crucial role in recent developments in Ukraine. Canada helped a lot in strengthening our democracy, our freedom, our independence. So I want to take this chance at the very beginning right now to thank you for the big support we are still receiving over there in our country facing war today. I'd like to begin my talk here in Toronto with a quote from a person who couldn't be with us today. This person is Ukrainian filmmaker Oleg Sentsov, who is serving 20 years prison sentence in Russia. Oleg was arrested in Crimea in May 2014, soon after the peninsula was annexed by Russia. He writes in his letter from his jail in Siberia, comparing himself to a nail that will not bend. Quote, "For those 3 years I've been sitting in a Russian prison. For those 3 years a war has been conducted against my country." He continues, "The enemy is fighting like a coward, wildly pretending he's got nothing to do with this. Nobody believes it, but that doesn't stop him." Oleg Sentsov, like many other volunteers in Ukraine, used to help to deliver food to Ukrainian soldiers in those territories which were taken by Russia. As to myself, I'm also a volunteer. At the very beginning of the establishment of Ukrainian Freedom Fund in April 2014, I was threatened by anonymous phone call. The caller threatened to shoot me. Many persons have used to receive those threatening phone calls or different threats. Many others have been sent to Russian prison, like Sentsov. Despite the danger arising from the war, most Ukrainians continue to support the security and defense of our country. Russia's military intervention in Ukraine gave rise to a big volunteer movement, which provides crucial support to the Ukrainian army fighting in the east of Ukraine. The scope of the voluntary effort supporting the Ukrainian military is unprecedented globally. It demonstrates the power a united society can have. Events that have occurred in Ukraine at the very beginning of 21st century tend to prove that there is a big need for the involvement of the global community in the resolution of conflicts and preventing aggression. While each country in the world needs to focus on its own problems, the world community must stand up to aggression to prevent spread of global instability. The defenders in Ukraine currently are dying in the war zone due to Russia's occupation of our country. Today we have to defend our country, our independence, our freedom. The attack on Ukraine by our neighbor Russia can be stopped by conducting peace treaties and the involvement of the global community. I'm grateful for having been invited to present my Live Free art exhibition in the headquarters of the United Nations in New York last few days ago. The idea of the project is to promote the image of the new Ukraine. The goal is to demonstrate to the global community the importance of the Revolution of Dignity and how this massive public action in the winter of 2013-2014 continues to shape and inform public opinion in Ukraine, including the desire to live free as an independent nation and society. The inspiration for this Live Free art collection came from Ukraine's struggle over the past 3 years. We see the results of our non-violent protest in 2013-2014. We have always tried to use civilized forms of protest in Ukraine. We used forms of civil disobedience that mirrored those used by protesters in India, in the independence struggle in the United States during the civil rights movement. We performed and we fulfilled our civil duty because of protest against the unjust policies of government in 2013, without using any violent means. And our struggle continues today. I chose to call my art collection Live Free to reflect the hopes and dreams of my country. In this time of Russia's war against Ukraine, I try to reveal in my artwork the great desire of many Ukrainians to live free. It would have taken years to achieve the high level of development that was injected into Ukraine's civil society during the time of the Revolution of Dignity. During the 90s, not many people in Ukraine knew what is NGO, non-governmental organization, what is charitable organization. During Soviet times, it was suggested that the state would take care of everything and everyone. There were always people in the Communist political party who were allowed to think, that's how I understand, and others who just wanted to follow the command from the powers above that rule the Communist political party. Many years of effort have since been spent to ensure that Ukraine will make a comeback from its former Soviet mentality. Currently, one may observe that the European values inherent in our land are being practiced again. During the Revolution of Dignity, the main lesson learned was that the moral needs of people will be met by the power that comes from a united society. In my canvases, I tried to reflect our ideas, experiences, and achievements. Our freedom was acquired at a painfully high price. I'm showing how we are washing away from our Soviet past and returning to our original European roots. This is a very painful process. Many lives were lost, many lives are still to be lost in the struggle for dignity and freedom. Many times we felt what it means to live life hanging over a cliff. I'm showing that's a painting, life over the cliff. In most difficult moments, we were simply looking for a foothold, like over here, behind you. Wherever you stand, you're falling down. We were waiting for those who lead and could unearth our solidarity and join our struggle for European values. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank one more time to Canada, to our big Ukrainian diaspora here in Toronto, those of you who have been with us, and those of you who remain side by side with us, with us, those who live in Ukraine. Thank you to my fellow Ukrainians for not losing enthusiasm. Despite all efforts to divide Ukrainians, whether by language or by territorial affiliation, we stick together because we are united in our desire to live free. Thank you.
I'd now like to ask Jan Schweiz for a few words. He is the Vice President of the Ukrainian Canadian Congress, Toronto, and sits on the National Executive of CUC as well, the Ukrainian Canadian Congress.
Pani Olyu, dear guests, on this occasion, let me first tie in today's event with a Canadian aspect. We are close to our Remembrance Day, hence we are coming up to remember all those who fought for democracy in Europe during the last two wars, during the Afghan War, Korean War, and many other conflicts around the world, and who continue to serve the best interests of the Canadian people and of democracy around the world, just as the Ukrainian people today are fighting for their democracy and their rights and freedoms that we so enjoy here in Canada and perhaps sometimes even take for granted. So on this very special week, when we come up to Remembrance Day, this is a very fitting exhibit to have Visit Canada and to tie in those two events in a fitting manner. Pani Olha, thank you so much for putting this together. I think the exhibit, first of all, is of such a high quality, as were your remarks, which perhaps is something that shows and demonstrates a new generation of Ukrainians who are being educated and now leading in Ukraine, a generation of Ukrainians who have thrown away the Soviet past, a generation of Ukrainians who are professionals, a generation of Ukrainians who are patriots of the Ukrainian nation. It brings us great joy to welcome you here this evening on behalf of the Ukrainian community and the Ukrainian Canadian Congress here in Toronto. Let me welcome you and welcome everybody and pass on our greetings from our community to Ukraine, to our brothers and sisters who continue the valiant fight for the Ukrainian nation. We will never give up, as nor will you. So, дуже дякую вам, вітаю до Канади.
Дякую.
We will now continue with the social mixer. Olha will end the music, of course, the piano accompaniment. Olha will be providing a little bit of a
Explanations.
painting by painting tour
For those who are interested.
for those who are interested a little bit later as we go along. Okay, great, thank you. If any of you are interested in seeing most of the other works, some of which Oksana has sold all over the world, or sorry, Olha has sold all over the world, there are catalogs you can purchase in the back. Thank you.